But the character I've really enjoyed sort of building, because it's all guesswork, and it's all as far as accent is concerned, and the mannerisms. All I've done, I think, is probably sort of come up with an old bloke who might have a limp and a few sort of old activities, but with a love of Scotch. That's real anyway, so I didn't have to practice that.
Hello, my name's Suzanne Hawkes, and I am the writer, director and producer of this play.
Suzanne's play, In Sickness and in Health, is a tremendous pulling together of all of the strands that were happening at the end, and also, of course, at the beginning of the Bartlett Convalescent Home.
The amount that I've learnt, I mean, Suzanne's research is really quite breathtaking, from the smallest detail. And everything you see throughout this production, there is a background to it. There's a story attached to it.
Then she decided to sort of do a play on many facets, isn't it? It's a drama, it's a love story, it's a musical, it's a comedy, and it's a kitchen sink drama on the basis of a community trying to retain something that had been given to it by a very, very generous man back in 1914. So it's a strong story, and it's still sort of limping on in its own way.
Afternoon to you. My name is Paul Pascal. I'm Stan the Man Hargreaves in this production of Susan's. She asked me through Black and White Productions to play the part, and I was quite happy to oblige. I've done several things with her production company. Stan the Man actually did exist, I believe. She did some research, and there was a character who did live in the grounds of the Bartlett, and I think she based this person as somebody that I could make something of. I also narrate the thing throughout, given a form of chronology of what happens as time progresses. And I've really enjoyed it. I like Stan, he's a good old boy. I could get on all right with him. I'd go drinking with him, I think.
As you can see, we're in the Bartlett Hospital itself, which was the Bartlett Convalescent Home before the NHS took it over. And it is an incredible privilege to be able to perform this play about the Bartlett's history actually in the Bartlett itself. It's just so amazing and so thrilling, and we've been inundated by people wanting to come and see it actually in situ in the place where the play is set.
Sort of interesting to see how many people were really keen to make the Bartlett continue, not to be closed. And personally, I was very appreciative of the Bartlett because I had relatives who'd been helped to end that in there. My uncle, in fact, had a hip operation, and had he not had the Bartlett to go to, I don't know what would have happened to him, because he couldn't get up his own stairs where he lived in Ipswich. So yeah, the Bartlett was really vital as far as I was concerned then.
I've lived in Felixstowe since I was 16, and I love this town. So the Bartlett has always been part of that. When I was younger, we used to go to the fetes they had there in the summer. And, you know, for a long time it's been derelict. And I know there's been a lot of anger and a lot of protests about the fact that should not have happened, it should have been protected. But I think actually, when I went to see the exhibition and there was talk about the plans and the building works, I know there's a lot of people who are angry, but I felt it's a good thing. It's better than it being empty, standing empty. And actually my concern was, let's have some really good quality houses and flats. Let's get some money coming into the town, people perhaps moving here from outside. And for me, I think you can't look back, you have to look forward. Next week, I'm going with my parents to actually look at one of the flats. They're thinking they might be interested in one. So, I mean, you know, if it's serving local people, and if it looks beautiful, and it's, you know, it's got a nice environment, then maybe that's the way to go. You know, a convalescent hospital, there wasn't a place for it anymore, was there? And it would have just stood empty. It would have been a white elephant if these property developers hadn't come along. And I think that's a really controversial thing to say, but it's kind of what I feel when I bike past the Bartlett every day, and I think, well, it's starting to look like it's going to be really decent.
Well, my original intention was to try and cover the whole of the history of the Bartlett, which was from 1926 to 2008 when it shut. But it's a huge expanse of history. And how do you focus down to make a 2-hour play out of it?
So, yeah, I'm Thomas. I play Munro Courtley, Henry Munro Courtley. He's the architect responsible for creating the design of the Bartlett Hospital. It's been interesting playing him. I'm very interested in the buildings that he has designed. He's got a really... he's obviously a modernist in the buildings he's done. St Augustine's Church in Ipswich is a very modern building with lots of striking angular lines and lots of concrete. But at the same time, there's an element of traditionalism. The library, the Ipswich County Library, it looks a bit like a Victorian neo-Gothic building, but actually it's built in the 20s, so it's this interesting mixture of modernism and kind of tradition.
I think sometimes these things, you don't get to the bottom of the truth if you hear the official version. But the version of that play really got to town, and I think the best part of it was those masks.
I think it was even in showing both sides, not that, you wanted to support the way that the officials, if you like, made their decisions. That was highlighted quite well, I thought, and obviously would then gel with what perhaps the general public thought at the time might be happening.
I usually play many characters, and no less in this production. In fact, I think it's 10 characters I counted, some of which speaking and non-speaking. I play officialdom in real officials, not the made-up ones. Chairmans, judges, protesters. I play various characters in the hospital bed, male and female.
But I discovered that if I did the play in 2 halves, the first half would be about Dr. Bartlett, Griffiths and Courtley, who actually got the Bartlett up and running. The second half could be short little scenes with the nurses from each of the eras, 1940s, 50s and 60s. So you had a small scene with nurses from each of those eras and incorporating some of the anecdotes I was told by the nurses. So that created quite an interesting play.
I play Lizzie, who was Bartlett's housekeeper initially, and then she was employed to be Griffith's secretary and personal assistant. She's a lowly housekeeper, but she's very forthright. She can come across as a little bit bossy. She knows what she's talking about. I mean, this is the early 1900s. And women were sort of a bit, you know your place, and if you're a housekeeper in the early 1900s, then you're going to do as you're told. And I can't imagine that Lizzie would have done. Lizzie would have done what Lizzie wanted to do, as long as it was the right thing.
And you feel that performing it in the Bartlett is going to be quite hard to cope with?
It would be the best place to do it, there's no doubt about it. But for people who are involved in the Bartlett Bequest Action Group campaign, it will be very hard, because this is, as it were, saying there cannot possibly be a convalescent use for the building itself. Okay, we shouldn't be too tied with buildings, but we're very aware of what Dr. Bartlett did in giving his money for this, and in Munro Courtney making such an excellent design on such a historic site.
I mean, I think the interest in the Bartlett history is great. And I think, one thing that Suzanne is fantastic at is picking stories that people are really interested in. And I think it's a story that needs to be told. And the fact that the Bartlett will no longer be a convalescent hospital doesn't mean the history isn't important or that people don't want to hear about it. So I think that's a great thing. And actually, the play exists and will continue to exist, won't it? So, no, that's a good thing. Yeah.
It's a really difficult one, because obviously doing this play, we've seen how adored it is and what a place it holds in so many people's hearts and everything. But at the same time, I can kind of see it from the NHS's point of view that it is a big old building, and convalescent care maybe isn't something that's, with the amount of money that they have and the work that they have to do, maybe that isn't something that they have to provide. But it is a really difficult one. I still haven't decided how I feel about it. But it's obviously a shame that the community have lost that, and you've lost the sense of communities of hospitals in general, really, which is clearly a bad thing.
So I think in the end, it's turned out to be a really interesting, informative and entertaining play. And audiences that have come to see it have thoroughly enjoyed it.
So what have you got next for us, Suzanne?
Well, I'm next hoping to do the history of Felixstowe as a promenade performance. And then I'm also hoping later on to be working with the RSC on a play about Shakespeare coming to Ipswich.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.